Best friend confronted my Stoic boyfriend, accusing him of being a sociopath, but neither will explain what unfolded in their fight. My boyfriend, we'll call him Blake, 25M and I 25F have been together for 3 years. Before we dated, we used to be co-workers at a retail store when we were both 17. The first thing I noticed about Blake when we met was that he never smiled or showed any emotion. He always had a serious, stone look on his face. He hardly, if ever, showed any emotional sentiments. I don't know how to describe it accurately, but just imagine Eminem or Shadow from Sonic and how they both always have a serious look on their faces. That's how Blake is. Even when customers or our coworkers would try to joke with him, he never cracked a smile or laughed, which would make it awkward for them. However, Blake has always been respectful to those around him and never once raised his voice throughout his whole career. Our coworkers always thought Blake was weird and warned me to avoid him. However, despite all that, Blake and I ended up getting along great and became good friends. I never really minded that he never showed any emotions and still thought he was a good person. He even put up with my loud, extroverted self, lol. Over the years, Blake and I became close, and I would occasionally see him smile or laugh, which I would lightly tease him about when it did happen. On my 22nd birthday, which is on Valentine's, Blake had asked me to come over to his house and said it was serious, and when I got there it was full of decorations and flowers, and Blake was dressed nicely. He gave a long speech about how much our friendship meant to him and that he was grateful he had met me and asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend. I swear it felt like I was in a 70s rom-com movie. It was the first time I had seen Blake so vulnerable. He still had his cute, serious stone face on him, but I could tell he was extremely nervous. I, of course, said yes, and we had been a happy couple since then. Now on to the issue. My best friend, let's call her Sarah, 26F, and I have been friends since we were in 5th grade. Sarah and I were each other's partners in crime. She and I were really close before I met Blake. She had never met Blake before, as at the time he and I were just barely talking, and by the time we graduated high school, she had moved away to stay with her dad in another city, so she never got the chance to meet him. I, of course, talked about him and showed pictures of him and me together when we became closer and started dating. However, she once stated how she found it weird that he never was really smiling or seemed happy when he was with me and that I shouldn't be dating someone who doesn't want to be happy around me. I brushed it off and just assured him that's how he is and that he is actually a sweet guy. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have looked past what she said, but at that time I thought she was just being a protective friend. She had recently come back to our city and wanted the three of us to meet together. We decided to meet at a restaurant her and I used to hang out at. When we got there, Sarah and I ran at each other and squealed like little girls while Blake just stood and watched us. When Sarah looked at Blake, I noticed her expression immediately changed, and she awkwardly smiled and shook his hand and only said hi to him. Blake just nonchalantly said it was good to meet her. She then went back to talking to me, completely ignoring my Blake. When we got our menus, Blake couldn't find a meal he would enjoy and just said he would be fine with a small appetizer. Sarah unexpectedly said, "Why? Is nothing here good enough for you? Why would you agree to come here if you weren't going to get anything then?" She tried to say it like it was a joke, but any person can tell it was obviously not. I then defended Blake, claiming he could have whatever he liked and it wasn't a big deal. Sarah then dropped it at that. Throughout our dinner Sarah was ignoring Blake and was only trying to talk to me. Blake just stayed silent and watched us, not really caring about it, as he normally is not a big talker when meeting people. When she did include him, she would seemingly only ask him questions that would only need a one-word answer. And when he did answer, she would just give him side eyes or just say, "Okay then." I could already tell Sarah did not like Blake, but I couldn't understand why. She wasn't directly being rude to him, but I could tell when she was making snide remarks about how he was emotionless and whatnot. At one point she excused herself to the bathroom, and when she left, I asked Blake if he was okay, and he assured me he was okay and just wanted me to catch up with my friend. I apologized for how she was acting, and he claimed he didn't care about it and was just happy I was with my friend. I was relieved he wasn't hurt by what was happening but still felt bad for him. After dinner the three of us went for a walk to see the buildings and stores, and Sarah seemed to be more cheerful. We then came across a person walking a small puppy. I love dogs so fucking much, and Sarah and I cooed and were giggling at how cute the puppy was. Blake was just standing, watching us fawn over the puppy. Once the dog owner left, Sarah turned to Blake, and she immediately became angry and asked, "How the fuck could you not even smile for a puppy? Are you seriously that soulless?" I was immediately shocked about her sudden change of tone and was about to say something, but Blake just shrugged and walked away, continuing our walk. I asked her what the hell her problem was, and she immediately apologized and said she didn't mean to yell. Our walk then became awkward. I wanted to just go home, but I also felt bad for Sarah, as she still had something else planned for after our walk that she had paid for the three of us to do, so I thought to just suck it up until it was over. I then had to use the bathroom, and we found a nearby store. I went in, and Blake and Sarah waited for me outside. When I came back, I found Sarah hysterically yelling at Blake. I immediately ran over to them and asked what the hell was going on. Sarah was in hysterics, but she kept yelling, "It's not going to happen. I will never let this happen." I asked her what she was talking about, but all she said was Blake was a sociopath and demanded I break up with him. I looked at Blake, who was just as shocked as I was. I kept trying to ask the both of them what had happened, but neither would answer me, which scared me. People started staring, and I desperately tried to calm Sarah down to de-escalate what was happening. Eventually I told Blake to walk back to the car so we could go home, and I would call an Uber for Sarah. When we were alone, I was trying to get Sarah to tell me what had happened, but she just stayed silent. Blake came back to pick me up, and Sarah was just deathly staring at him, and he kept his head low. I didn't know what was happening and just started assuming they had an argument. Thankfully Sarah's Uber came and took her back to her hotel. Our car ride home was awkwardly silent, but as soon as we got home, I demanded to know what happened between him and Sarah. Blake just stayed silent, and at that point I was irritated with the both of them not answering my question. Blake said he couldn't say what happened but that he was so sorry for what happened. That made me even more confused, and I asked him to please just say what had happened. He only said he swore he didn't do anything bad but that he simply just couldn't say what happened. I then told him I was going to sleep in the guest bedroom as I just couldn't handle everything that was happening. Especially since I still had no answer as to what had happened between the two of them. He said he understood and told me he loved me and went to our room. This all happened not even a few hours ago. I am currently lying in the guest room, confused and scared as ever. I know Sarah and Blake didn't really get along, but I don't know what caused such a huge fight that neither can tell me about. An hour ago I got a text from Sarah. I will copy and paste it here. Sarah, I'm really sorry about what happened tonight, but please listen to me. You need to break up with Blake. He is a literal sociopath who is only using you. He doesn't deserve you. I'm telling you this because I love you and want to protect you. Please break up with him. I haven't responded to her text as I know if I try asking again what happened between them she won't give me an answer. Reddit, I don't know what to do. I don't know if Sarah had said something to Blake or if Blake had something to Sarah that caused all this, but I'm scared that neither of them will tell me. Does Sarah simply just does not like Blake because he doesn't like to show his emotions? Any advice on how I can get the truth or at least some answers would be helpful. Update 1. The night I made the post, I had some time to sit and think about everything that happened. I now know I could have handled the situation better, and I shouldn't have let Sarah continue her horrible behavior towards Blake. The fact that both of them were not telling me what was going on irritated me, and I let my anxiety get the better of me. I wanted to hear Blake out first, so I decided not to read Sarah's messages. I had turned off my phone and spent the day on my computer watching Reddit stories and learning how to use it better and going for a run to get my mind off everything. Once Blake came home, I asked if we could talk, to which he agreed. Taking the advice of a kind Redditor, I sat him down and started by apologizing for walking away from him the night before and for not defending him more during the hangout. I assured him I love and trust him deeply and that I will believe what he says to me. Eventually Blake told me what happened. Some of you guessed it right, Blake was planning on proposing to me. The way he described it was that when I left, he confided in Sarah that he was planning to propose to me and asked if she could help choose a ring, since she was supposed to hang out with us again another day. Blake then said Sarah asked if he was being serious, and when he said he was being serious, she then started screaming and lashing out at him. She screamed at him that this engagement will never happen. You don't deserve her. And that's when I came outside. To say I was beyond shocked would be understandable. I then hugged him and once again apologized and asked if that was the reason he didn't want to tell me. Blake said yes, and it's because he didn't want to ruin the surprise. He then apologized for not just telling me, saying it wasn't worth keeping it as a surprise if it was causing us problems. I told him it wasn't causing us any problems and that I love him even more now. We both then hugged it out and made up. Blake then asked what Sarah had said about the situation. I admitted to him that I didn't read anything she had sent and just turned off my phone as I was scared of what she had said. After a while I finally turned on my phone, and I honestly wished I didn't. When Sarah said she wasn't going to let this engagement happen, she really did mean it. I don't know she could do this to me, but now she's got our friends, my sister, and my aunt involved and even involved my estranged dad, which was a real low blow. For context, my dad and I are no longer on speaking terms due to an incident with my former stepmom. They're no longer together. After finally reading my family and friends' messages, it sums up that Sarah had told them I'm with a sociopath and that I'm refusing to leave him even when she tried to help. So now, the people who once knew the sweet, loving Blake that I know think he is now a crazy person and are begging me to leave him. I was, and still am, beyond furious. I had spent the whole night trying to clear the air with everyone, except my dad. Unfortunately, my aunt and some of my friends are still agreeing with Sarah, which is breaking my heart. There were so many texts from Sarah, but it ranged from her begging me to answer her to her being mad that I was taking Blake's side and not hers to her apologizing for involving my dad but saying, it was for my own good. I had only sent her one text, and it goes as follows, copy and pasted. I don't understand how you expect me to take your side when you never told me why you said what you said. Blake had already told me what happened, and I can't even imagine what your side is. I can't believe you fucking lied to our friends and my family. And for you to involve my dad? How the fuck do you even have his number? Above all, you disrespected my relationship and my boyfriend. Fuck you. I have since blocked her. She never told me why she wouldn't tell me what happened, so I still don't know what her motive was on that part. Other than to try to break us up. Not a great update, but Blake and I are doing okay. He has been very understanding and patient throughout all this, and I couldn't be more grateful for him. I know this might not be the end of this nightmare, so I may update again soon. I just don't know how to go about this. How can I convince my friends and my aunt that Blake is a good person? Should I somehow get Sarah to admit she was lying? Once again, thank you all for your advice. To the one Redditor who said my story was fake and that I shouldn't be with someone like Blake, I just want you to understand that these types of cartoonish situations can unfortunately happen to us. And also Blake is one of the best things that has ever been brought into my crazy life, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. Update 2. After the dust settled from my initial fallout with Sarah, Blake and I decided to take some time to focus on ourselves. I figured the storm would blow over if I ignored Sarah and just stuck to repairing my relationships with the people she had turned against me. But I underestimated her persistence. Oh boy, did I underestimate her. First, Sarah started emailing me, from new addresses after I blocked her on every platform. The emails were long, rambling tirades about how Blake was dangerous and how I was making the biggest mistake of my life. She even attached poorly photoshopped images of Blake looking angry in public settings, as if to prove he was unstable. I showed them to Blake, and we couldn't help but laugh. It was honestly so ridiculous. But the laughter quickly turned into unease when she started emailing Blake directly. How she got his email address, I have no idea. In her messages to him, she accused him of trapping me in a relationship and claimed she'd do whatever it takes to save me. Blake, ever the calm and rational one, showed me the emails without hesitation. He didn't even seem angry, just deeply concerned for me. This is more about her than me, he said. She's clearly going through something. But Sarah wasn't content to just harass us privately. Oh no, she decided to air her grievances publicly. She made a Facebook post, classic, detailing her side of the story. According to her, Blake had brainwashed me into loving him, was emotionally abusive, and was isolating me from my friends and family. She even posted screenshots of my texts to her, the one where I told her off and blocked her, making it look like I was being cold and ungrateful after she tried to save me. The post went viral within our circle, and the fallout was immediate. Friends and family who had been on the fence about the situation started taking sides. I received messages ranging from "we're here for you if you need help" to "how can you let Blake treat Sarah like this?" Meanwhile, Blake, true to form, stayed silent and refused to stoop to her level. "Let's not give her more fuel," he said, urging me to focus on the people who truly mattered. At this point, I was beyond frustrated. I needed answers. Why was Sarah doing this? Why was she so hellbent on destroying my relationship? After some digging, and by digging, I mean interrogating mutual friends who still talk to her, I found out something shocking. Sarah was apparently going through a rough breakup, around the time she moved back to the city. Her ex-fiancé had left her for someone else, and she had confided in a mutual friend that seeing Blake and me together made her sick to her stomach. The friend who told me this also admitted that Sarah had vented about how she couldn't stand how emotionless Blake seemed and how she was doing me a favor by exposing him. It became painfully clear, this wasn't about Blake. It was about her projecting her own pain and insecurities onto us. The real turning point came when Sarah showed up at my workplace unannounced. I work at a marketing firm, and it's not exactly the kind of place where personal drama is welcome. Sarah showed up during lunch, demanding to talk to me. My coworkers were understandably confused, and I had no choice but to step outside with her. The confrontation was intense. Sarah broke down crying, telling me that I deserved better and that she was just trying to protect me. She claimed Blake would eventually ruin my life and that I was too blinded by love to see it. When I calmly asked her for any concrete reason why she thought Blake was dangerous, she just repeated the same vague accusations about him being emotionless and manipulative. I told her, point blank, that her behavior was damaging my relationships and that I needed her to leave me alone. Her response? "You'll thank me someday." I walked back into my office, shaking with a mix of anger and sadness. This was no longer the Sarah I had known since 5th grade. As if the universe had impeccable timing, Blake decided it was time to act. He knew how much this whole ordeal had taken a toll on me, and he wanted to prove that our relationship was stronger than ever. Last week, Blake took me out to dinner at the same restaurant where he had first asked me to be his girlfriend. It was a sweet, sentimental gesture, and I could tell he was nervous. After dessert, he pulled out a small box, got down on one knee, and asked me to marry him. "Reader," I said yes. In that moment, every ounce of doubt and anxiety melted away. Blake is my person, my rock, and I couldn't be more certain about our future together. Since the engagement, we've taken a firm stance against Sarah's antics. We're working on rebuilding relationships with friends and family who were swayed by her lies. Some have apologized and are happy for us, while others, like my aunt, are still skeptical. But honestly, I've realized that the people who truly love and trust me will come around in their own time. As for Sarah, I've made it clear that she is no longer welcome in my life. I'm considering sending her a legal cease and desist letter if she continues to harass us. Blake and I have also started couples therapy, not because our relationship is in trouble, but because we want to strengthen our communication and make sure we're prepared for whatever life throws at us. Now on to second story. Refused to apologize to my sister's boyfriend for wanting an IUD and rejecting the stay-at-home mom life, causing a family feud over God's plan. So I, F22, have an older sister, F28, she has 4 kids. And she loves being a mom and wants to be a stay-at-home mom. And I encourage her to do whatever she wants. She herself understands that I have no desire to be a mom right now, if not ever. I have 2 other older sisters who are like me, who doesn't want to be a stay-at-home mother. This is important in the story. Her boyfriend is mad at me, M27, cause he asked me when I'm going to settle down and that he can introduce me to his friend, M25, who wants a stay-at-home wife. I told him no, that I don't want to date anyone this year, and he got mad at me for some reason and asked me why, so I told him my ex-boyfriend left me with trust issues. My ex cheated on me for 6 months into a 3-year relationship. He told me we broke up in 2023 and I should start getting back out there. And I told him it's not his business and he dropped it. But 2 days ago he asked me if I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mother. And I told him no, that I don't, and I'm not even sure if I want kids, let alone to be married. He got defensive since his mom was a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I told him I don't see anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. But that I don't personally want to depend on a man for anything, and he once again got defensive and said not all men are the same. I told him he was correct, but again, not all women want the same thing. He said my sister wants to be a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I told him congratulations on finding that with my sister, but that I once again don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. He got mad cause he overheard my conversation about me getting an IUD as well and told me I'm ruining God's plan to make me a mom one day, and I told him whether I want kids or not is not his business. He got mad at me and told me to get out of his home, so I did. My older sister is asking me to apologize to him and to not get an IUD, since if I get pregnant that it's God's plan. And she also told me I should reconsider being a stay-at-home mom/wife. I told her not everyone has that dream, and she accused me of not respecting stay-at-home mothers/wives, which is nothing but lies. My 2 other older sisters are on my side and said my sister's boyfriend shouldn't be too concerned with how I live my life. And that if I don't want to depend on anyone for the rest of my life, that's my choice. He also said I'm going to hell for being bisexual, so I screamed that I guess his girlfriend, my sister, is also going to hell cause she's bisexual herself, which he already knows about. Now their friends are calling me an asshole, saying that he only cares about what I do with my body since it's God's body and I should respect it and become a mom soon. So am I the asshole for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home wife/mom? Edit: to clarify, I did put this in some comments. But 3 out of her 4 kids aren't even his. My sister has a 7,4,3, and soon to be newborn. Edit 2, I get asked this question a lot, about why I was discussing getting an IUD to my sister's boyfriend. I wasn't discussing it to him. Me and my 3 sisters were all discussing it at his house, but he wasn't there. He walked in though when I said I was thinking of getting an IUD, and that's when he butted into the conversation, and as soon as he said God's body not my body, me and my 2 other sisters started talking to him about it, and he raised his voice, so I raised mine, and we eventually left since I don't like conflict at all. My sister, who is with him, wholeheartedly supports him and that I should be a stay-at-home. She wants me to apologize to keep the damn peace, but I told her I'm done keeping the peace. He also supports the abortion ban, which is his opinion. Me on the other hand is pro-choice. He wants a national abortion ban even for rape and incest. Which makes me nervous to be in a room with him. She also supports this. Update 1. So this is the update. I already knew I was going to go no contact with her boyfriend, as I don't feel safe around him, but I went ahead and called my sister to tell her and why I chose no contact with. And she is now super mad at me, saying I overreacted and all that fun stuff. So I asked her if they were going to apologize, and she said they don't owe me an apology and I owe him an apology. He overheard us on the phone and once again got into the conversation, and I told him I have nothing to say to him. He told me he wanted to know an answer to 2 of his questions. Why I don't want to be a STHM. Told him it's none of this business and to stay in his lane. Why I don't want to date/marry his friend. Told him that he isn't my type and never will be. And to not talk to me again. He told me if I don't stop overreacting I won't have anything to do with my nephews and niece. And that NGL got to me. And I told him for my mental health I'm done being/talking to him. And my sister said okay, you made your choice and we will make ours. So now I'm no contact with both of them. Also found out my dad found out yesterday, and this morning after I was on phone with them he went and yelled at Josh and told him to back off. And that his daughter wasn't for sale or anything like that. And they got into a fist fight. And apparently my dad won. I'm not totally sure about that though, and my dad called me and apologized and asked me personally why I don't want to be a stay-at-home mother, so I told him the reason, which had to do with my dad, stepmom, and he apologized to me saying that he never meant to do that to her. He was very abusive to her. At one point I saw him choke her and screamed, and he let her go but never apologized for it. So I decided to cut off my sister and her boyfriend, which sucked cause I won't able to see my niece and nephews anymore, but my mental health and physical health is more important to me, TBH. There is one more thing that was said that I forgot to mention. So in my last post about this, there were so many PPL telling me to ask him when he's going to marry my sister since they are not living in God's plan. So I asked him. His response was, it's not my business to know, to which I said then it's not his business to know anything about what I do with my body and who I date and all that. He got angry with me and proceeded to cuss me out. I honestly just lauded. It's like he's trying to groom her to be a sister wife or a communal wife with his friend. Creepy.